Matt, as a previous production manager, especially of a larger shop, what do you feel like are some common qualities for somebody else hiring a production manager that you would convey to them to help them? And it could be anything, right? There's like hard skills or soft skills. It feels like there's a crazy balance there of everything. But where do you think the best folks are, and what should they have?
I think when looking for a production manager, the biggest thing to look for is someone who works well under pressure, is able to kind of have a lot of things flying at them at once, slow it down, compartmentalize, and then try to just break it apart, but quickly, right? So I don't necessarily need to have someone who's a phenomenal printer. I don't necessarily have to have somebody that's like a phenomenal spreadsheet whiz that can go figure out numbers. You can train people. You can put them through Udemy classes on how to use Excel, right? You can train them on all those things. Having the ability to just have chaos and then take that chaos and calm it down, I find to be the most important quality when hiring a production manager, because let's be honest, most of the days you're going to come across some sort of chaos. Someone calls in sick, a job that has to go out the door in like 2 hours is not working on press. When you get frantic, things only get worse. Nothing ever gets better. So I always think the most important thing is someone that can stay calm under pressure, and then you can train them with those skills. You can train them how to diagnose a print, how to understand what's going on, how to control the variables. You can train them how to understand how to work with employees, how to work with customers. Those are all skills that I think are a little bit more trainable, as opposed to training who they are intrinsically and the ability to just remain calm under pressure. I think that's a little bit more at birth almost, right? Like I think that's a hard skill developed in your early years.
How do you detect for that though? Especially in the interview process?
Well, you really can't in the interview process. You ask them questions like, how do they do under pressure? And they're going to be like, oh, I'm great under pressure. It's like, okay, cool. You're not going to really believe that. So whenever hiring for production managers, you have to have previous production manager experience, or if it's a new person, they're not a production manager right away. You put them in as a production coordinator, and you have to kind of do a little bit of that Venn diagram where you're kind of like overlapping a little bit. But you put them through the paces. You teach them the basics. You have them do sign-offs. You watch how they're doing. You see how, also, if they're new to the company and they're coming in as a fresh face, the press operators are going to help put them through a little bit of hell, because every shop I've seen this happen at, the new person becoming a new supervisor over the press operators already, they're going to have to go uphill a little bit. They're going to be treated a little bit like crap by a handful of people. Some people are going to be nicer about it. Other ones are going to be jerks, right? That is also a good pressure test. If you can't figure out how to navigate someone being crabby at you, then you can't be a good production manager in the long run either, right? So put them as a production coordinator, start testing them out, and you'll usually see, and I always recommend when you're hiring middle management that you're on kind of like a probationary period for the first like 60 to 90 days just to make sure they are a good fit. Because you'll know in that first 60 to 90 days if they're a good fit, and if they're not, get rid of them and start over. Don't keep beating your head against that, trying to make it work. So that's how I always handled that.
So we brought in our operations manager with no press experience whatsoever, no printing experience, and they managed a huge restaurant. And it was a really interesting transition. Like there were times where I didn't think it was going to work. And then as we learned to work with one another, I also learned like how someone that works in a kitchen knows how to keep a bunch of things juggling when like everything's going crazy, how to deal with crazy customers, how to deal with employees that have a lot of issues, and like how to keep a level head through it. And I think one of the things I've learned, actually Justin was just on paternity leave, just had a little baby boy. And so he was out for the last month. And so I was just kind of texting and I'm like, you have a way of keeping the glue together in the back of the shop, keeping everyone happy, checking in on everyone. And when he was gone, it was cool to hear some of the people, like some of them say like, oh, can't wait for Justin to come back. And those were individuals that may have been fighting him during that first 90 days, And so it was really hard for me to like, he knew nothing about printing. It's like, you don't know jack about printing, but I want you to manage. But like, I had to let the team know this is who's going to be managing. So like, don't fight it, And once they kind of turned and realized, wait, it's not about like who can print the fastest or who knows the most about printing. They're the glue. Everyone like fell in love with it, you know? And so that was a growing pain for us and for Justin and I, because like he runs his kitchen differently than I do.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take for you guys to click?
Probably wasn't till like, you know, we started in October, probably not till February, you know? And I did need to bring Matt in to help for like the technical side. And that's where you bring in professionals, right? Whether it's like Ryan or Matt or any of those guys, that helps bring credibility to the table. But then I also like gave him space, and that was when it started working. Like when I gave him space.
Figure out the problems?
Yeah, like, you know, FedEx, something happens with FedEx, he's got to deal with it, you know?
Was that because you felt like you were jumping in when there was a problem? And then being like, this is how, okay.
You should do it like this. You should do it like that, you know? Letting him figure it out and use, his own common sense. Like he's an extremely intelligent individual. Mm-hmm. It was just like an opportunity for him to know that I do trust him, you know? And at the end of the day, when SNS hasn't, you know, or missed a shipment or UPS or FedEx, like he's the one hauling in his truck and doing everything that I would do, you know? And so it wasn't until I sort of like walked away a little bit and said, like, we both can't be in here trying to be production managers. And so I don't know, that's kind of how it worked for us. And it's a work in progress. We're still learning every single day.
It's double training. Not only he has to learn how to be that role, and you have to learn how to stop being that role. And those are two very hard things that are happening simultaneously, and like they kind of want to work against each other, right? So it's almost twice as hard for you as it is for him in some of those instances, because it's that much harder just to not still have that control that you've done hands-on for the last five years, right? So. Mm-hmm. I respect that, and I was happy to see that journey, and I did see some of that head clashing early on, but like you said, he's a super intelligent guy. You're pretty smart too, so I knew that it would work its way through.
We could have him on at some point. Justin would be pretty cool.
Yeah, Justin's great.
That's actually a really good idea. I'm curious, if you were to go back then, so it sounds like 6 months before it really started clicking and running well, was it possible to get that down to 2 to 3, or is that just the time it takes? Like, were there things that you pulled away from saying, I should have done this different?
You know, he was coming in, you know, like he was coming to the rescue in a time where we were really, really busy. So it was not a good time to train. Okay. And so we were already like, timing was really bad. We were going into fourth quarter craziness. And he kind of saw me flying by the seat of my pants trying to figure out how to do all the fulfillment and all this. And he's trying to take a stab at it too, but none of us really know what we're doing, you know? And so it really takes time. And I could have done it a ton better.